I'd like to call to order the fourth meeting of the Warren County Shared Services Panel. And if we could do a quick roll call, Mayor Hall.
Here.
Supervisor Conover. Supervisor Leggett. Here. Supervisor Frazier.
Here.
Supervisor Simpson.
Here.
Supervisor Hogan.
Here.
Supervisor Dickinson. Supervisor Merlino. Supervisor Strau.
Here.
Supervisor Thomas. Supervisor Hyde. Supervisor Garrity.
Here.
Mayor Blaze is excused. Superintendent Goralski is excused. Superintendent Huntley.
Here.
And Superintendent Jenkins is excused. With me, we do have a quorum. We have 17 members. 9 of us is a quorum. That's an important number because our next meeting to adopt the shared services plan, we not only have to have a quorum to have a meeting, but we have to have a majority vote of the panel in order to adopt a plan. So hopefully we'll have a unanimous vote. We can set this up in a way where there should be really little controversy, and I'll get to that. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the February 3rd meeting? Mr. Strauss, second. Ms. Frazier, all in favor?
Aye.
It's carried. Minutes are approved. I'd like to, I know maybe you've seen a little bit of this before, but I'd like to just walk you through the timetable and some of the legal requirements. As you know, first of all, we don't get credit for any of the past shared services initiatives that we've implemented and continue to implement. This is really all for initiatives that begin January 1st, 2019. I do also want to, introduce Jessica Waldorf from NYPA. She'll be making a presentation on one of our proposed initiatives today. So with that in mind, we do have a pretty strict timetable. By August 1st, I have to present a first draft of this plan. I submit this plan to the Board of Supervisors for comment. We're in decent shape so far for that. We don't have to have all of the nitty-gritty worked out by the time the draft goes to the board, but the board will have the opportunity to comment on the draft. We need to do 3 public hearings from that point to the time in which the plan is adopted, and that all has to happen before September 15th. September 15th is my deadline to file this plan with the state budget director. So before September 15th, this panel will convene one more time, and we will have a vote on the final shared services plan. Hopefully we'll have some better numbers in place for the savings that we expect out of the various initiatives, as well as the final participants initiative. Again, September 15th is my deadline. I have to submit that plan to the state budget director along with a certification to the best of my ability of the savings contained therein. And then I have another month to make a public presentation so we can determine the best time and place for that. It's possible, I suppose, to do that at the September board meeting, but I'll talk to the chairman as to whether that'll fit into the schedule depending on what we have for that meeting. Now, we have a very strict mandated reporting format that is dictated by the state law, and I'll show you some of what this looks like. The beginning of this, of course, it lists all of the participants. The 2 city mayors are mandatory participants. And can we reflect that Supervisor Thomas is here? Mandatory participants are also the 11 town supervisors, and optional participants are the school districts. We, for every vote against the plan, the panel member who votes no is required by state legislation to submit in writing the reason why they voted no. So this is an incentive for us to hopefully come up with a unanimous vote, and I see no reason why we can't do that. As long as we, for each initiative that we come up with, if there's a panel member that's not interested in it, we just won't include you in it. We'll only include the towns and city, village that are interested in participating in each initiative. And my office will work with all of you to make sure that if you're not on board with something, that you're not on the list for that. So really the challenge for us for the next meeting will just be getting a quorum and getting at least 9 people to vote for it. Going forward, row 5, these are the property tax levies that we've compiled with Lexi's help in the Real Property Office for the current year, 2018. As you can see, about $65 million comes from the county and the cities, the towns and the villages. The special districts, these are things like lighting districts, water districts, sewer districts. Fire districts are not allowed by the state legislation. It's very specific as to what can be included as a special district. That's about $3.5 million. And then the school districts are almost $102 million for a grand total of $170 million for 2018 tax levy. Where we go from there is each of the participants. We don't, in other words, use the 170,000 to rate our savings. We use the combined tax levies of only the participants. So we have so far 3 school districts that are participating. I believe there's 9 in the county. So only the ultimate participants in this plan will have their tax levy go into the denominator, as you would say. Row 7, you've gotten surveys so far as to some of the initiatives that we're looking at, and Supervisor Merlino is here. The reason why we've sent these surveys out on the early side is because it's important for us to really do our best to drill down on the savings that we can expect, not only for next year, should these initiatives be put into place, but also the following 3 years. Especially with this NYPA program, for those of you who decide to do it, there could be some significant out-year savings that we're going to want to reflect in the thereafter number. So that's row 7. We'll come up with the cumulative savings. If there's any extra expense from the county to implement any of this stuff, we'll factor that in. It's a net calculation. And then in row 8, as I said, we divide that not by the overall $170 million, but by the number in row 6 that reflects the tax levies of the participants. So, you know, rough justice, if you're going to do, let's say we did all of the cities, towns, and villages, if you're going to show 1% savings, you're looking at, you know, $640,000 for the savings that we're going to want to try to come up with. In my experience, other counties have not necessarily come up with huge percentages, and again, it's if there's low-hanging fruit, chances are we've already taken advantage of it. We do a lot here. Julie Butler, our purchasing director, is here, and she's worked very hard with the Shared Services Committee to do commodity bidding and piggybacking on contracts. And like I said, I mean, she's saved hundreds of thousands of dollars. None of that can count. So it's all new stuff. It's all new stuff we got to come up with.
We still appreciate it.
We appreciate it very much, as do the taxpayers. Row 9, we have to calculate the anticipated savings to the average taxpayer. What we'll do is we'll just take the taxable parcels minus the exempt parcels. That's how we'll figure that out. And then row 10 and row 11, we figure out the, and it'll probably be the same number, the percentage that businesses and homeowners can expect their property taxes to increase or decrease if this plan is fully implemented. Now, of course, most municipalities under the property tax cap do a modest increase each year. So I have been in touch with all of you, I think most of you, if not all of you, who do levy taxes, to get a rough estimate on what your tax levies might be for the next 3 years, because that does factor into this calculation. And again, nobody's going to hold us to these numbers, but it's sort of a best faith effort. And then I have to certify it as the chair of the panel. The county administrator or the county executive certifies the savings, and we submit it to the director of budget. Now, so far, this is a little bit old because we've gotten some more survey responses in today, but the number 1 indicates an entity's willingness to participate. or to further score savings in the initiatives that we've been looking at so far. 0 indicates that for whatever reason, and for some towns for very good reason, that they will not be participating in the initiative, which is fine. Again, my goal here is to, if you have a town that wants to opt out of something, we won't include you because we would like to have your support for the final plan. We had some more stuff come in today, Warrensburg, Bolton, for instance, but we'll continue, my office will continue to work with all of you to try to get this information together so that we can do the best we can to score potential savings. And finally, I just wanted to take you through the initiatives that we've come up with so far. We've been through all the records of the past 3 meetings of this panel, the past couple of years of the Shared Services Committee. And what we've tried to do is focus in on initiatives that can have broad support, that we believe are attainable, that we believe will result in savings that we can measure, and that will result in savings, period. There have been some proposals out there that may very well be good long-term proposals that will not save us any money during the first 3 years. So for purposes of this exercise, you know, and an example of that might be the shared EMS, where we're not certain whether or not that'll save us any money for the first 3 years, but it very well may in the out years. So an initiative like that, for now, we've left off. So here's the initiatives that we're looking at right now. IT, there was a lot of interest expressed throughout these meetings. I spoke with Mike Colvin. I spoke with really most of our department heads about any ideas that they have of things that we can do. And Mike and I came up with 3 IT initiatives that we believe are will have the most chance of success. One is advisory services. So Mike in his office has a lot of expertise in, you know, doing some of the more long-term planning that various towns may need, building out networks, coming up with equipment replacement, hardware, software, long-term policies. His office can provide that expertise where some municipalities may not have that expertise in-house, and hopefully do that in a way that will allow you to plan for your budgeting and economize and save some money. Depending on the interest expressed in this, it could involve hiring another part-time or even a full-time employee in the IT department. In the event that we do that, we would structure an appropriate IMA so that we could, with the goal of having towns help us with that cost while spending less money than you currently do on these types of services. So that's IT advisory services, probably the most complex of the information technology services that we've come up with. Another is purchasing services. Mike and his office keep a very, very close eye on all the latest state contract pricing, all the latest contracts that are out there that are available for piggybacking. I believe he's helped some of the supervisors with some of these things. In other cases, you know, some of the towns may just be going out to, you know, Staples or OfficeMax, if that still exists, or Circuit City or whatever, and buying a computer. So we think that there's definitely some opportunity there for Mike to work with you when you anticipate equipment needs and help you come up with the best price and show you how to do that, show you how to utilize the state contract or whatever the cooperative agreement might be. And that's at no cost to the county. As I said, Mike is already keeping up on that and is more than willing to offer that. Also, we just had a resolution that the Board of Supervisors adopted last month to allow municipalities to piggyback off of our antivirus pricing. We have a 3-year contract with a company called Trend Micro, and they only charge us $6.52 for each license, and each license covers up to 1 computer and 2 additional mobile devices. It's a really good deal. We've heard a little bit of, participants saying we're comfortable with the service that we have and we don't want to take a risk in switching, which is understandable. And if you feel that way, we can leave you off of this piece. But please do talk to Mike and see whether or not that's worth pursuing for your town. We do think it could be a good opportunity for the towns. We go over now to a few DPW-related items. Kevin Hajos, our superintendent, is here. Engineering services. To the extent that towns now can save money by utilizing the engineers that are in Kevin's shop for, any of your highway projects, I think the services that we're looking at would be road design, bridge design, culvert design, minor building projects, some environmental engineering, even a little bit of grant writing, that we could look at that and see whether there's an opportunity to save money by bringing that into the county DPW department rather than however the municipalities are currently doing it, whether you're doing it with contractors or your current staff, whatever the case may be. Again, like the IT advisory services, if this is a service that's heavily utilized, then the county would need to look at potentially adding staff and doing some IMAs with the municipalities that participate to recover some of those costs if it's economical, if in that IMA you're saving money compared to what you're doing right now. The next piece is equipment sharing. Now, as I mentioned, Julie Butler has built a web portal, a cooperative bidding portal, as we call it, that displays contracts that municipalities can piggyback off of, displays bids that municipalities can access. She's trained all of the towns, or most of the towns, in how to use that system. People have logins. And what we would look to do with this piece, equipment sharing, is add a new page to that web portal where towns that want to participate can provide us with their inventories. And the county would also provide its inventories. And what we're talking is it would be public works equipment, heavy highway equipment, that sort of thing. So that if you're about to do a project and you know you need a certain piece of equipment that you might not have, you can look to the other towns, look to the county, and see if rather than renting that equipment out from somewhere else, you can borrow it, and we'll have appropriate indemnifications, and we can work that out as we flesh this piece out. This next piece, joint bidding for landscaping and mowing, would not be something that the county necessarily would participate in because we handle a lot of this stuff through our existing labor force. We're throwing this up there because some of the towns have suggested it, the towns that are utilizing, say, contractors to perform some of these services. If participants are willing to do this, we envision it being towns working together, and our purchasing director, Julie, would help you put together a cooperative bid for that. So if there's several towns that want to go out and do it. We would caution you, however, regarding prevailing wages. Prevailing wages do apply to landscaping and mowing around buildings, but they don't apply to similar services around roadways. So just if you do want to take advantage of this, be cognizant of that however you're doing the service, if you were to go out and do it a different way, that you wouldn't end up having to pay more due to prevailing wage requirements. The next piece we have a few miscellaneous pieces. There had been some interest expressed from some of the towns regarding a dedicated effort from the county tourism office to focus in on local events. Some of the smaller towns have had parades historically or other events that have brought tourists in that have sort of fallen by the wayside because there's not enough staff to keep up on it, whatever the case may be. I've talked to our tourism department, and they're very, very willing to explore taking more of an active role in doing strictly local events for the towns, for the municipalities. Even for, I think there's been some interest expressed by at least one of the cities in a little bit more cooperation here. Again, if it results in increased tourism, increased occupancy tax, it may take the property tax burden off of some of those towns that currently are dipping into their property tax levies to support tourism-related activities. To the extent that we get more occupancy tax dollars flowing in, that's tax relief, and we can count it towards this plan. We have, again, Jessica here to discuss the Smart Street Lighting New York initiative that NYPA has undertaken. I believe that's an initiative that's fairly new within the past year or two. So Jessica will do a presentation on that. I think that it's very intriguing with a potential really for in the long term, as I mentioned, some really, really big savings, depending on how the towns want to do it. And the towns, another thing I like about this is the towns do have the ability to tailor this very much to the way they would like to do it. It's not a one-size-all approach, and NYPA is providing a turnkey operation, overseeing all of the bids, overseeing the process. And Susan Savage is here from the Department of State. Thank you, Susan, for putting this initiative on our radar. I think that there'll be some interest in this. We are working with the school districts via BOCES on the possibility of having the school districts through BOCES jump onto the purchasing department's online portal for cooperative bidding. We have a little bit more homework to do on that to see whether it's possible, whether it's economical, how we would score it. But we do believe there's a way for us to use that system via BOCES and have the school districts wind up better off than they currently are. May work out, may not. If it doesn't, we'll remove it, but we'll hope to have an answer on that within the next couple of weeks. And the school districts have been very, very helpful in having meetings with us and phone conversations to help us figure all of that out, so thank you. And at this point, I know that over the course of the past year or so, there have been other ideas discussed. I did want to open it up to panel members in the event that you think we're missing any low-hanging fruit that we may want to consider adding. Would anybody, yes? Yes, so you're currently contracting that out for the most part.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. And also, it's kind of as security becomes more and more of an issue, that measure is changing
Mm-hmm.
as well.
Okay.
You get to figure out how to break the system and security. A lot of these things remove credit cards or have credit card information as part of the database. It's very important to have information.
Okay, what do you think, Mike? Is that within our bailiwick to look into?
No, it is. That's part of the credit card stuff we have to store that here. With those factors, IOs, that security, that type of stuff.
Okay.
Transactions with those credit cards.
Okay, okay. So maybe what I'll do then is I'll shoot out an email to all the participants, and we can gauge who might be interested in that, and we can go forward from there. And if it's worthwhile, we could put out I don't know, an RFP or whatever may be appropriate to.
We're being told that some of the assurance that's going to be provided by the credit card companies.
Okay. Okay. Good to know. Any others?
Yeah.
Yes, Supervisor Leggett.
Listening to our county clerk talk about her record management system that's being implemented or has been ongoing, and getting it into electronic format and archived and such. And I'm wondering if our towns are able to take advantage of any of that, whether it's through specialized equipment or software, just technical knowledge on how to file and archive for any of the records that we have at a town level.
Okay, I will discuss that with the county clerk. Any other suggestions from panel? Yes, Supervisor Strau.
Well, and again, I'm going to touch on what Craig brought up. In the IT world, and this might fall under advisory, towns have to be looking at their long-term plans for archiving, long-term storage, data storage, redundancy. Are they using on-site, off-site servers? Are they going to go to the cloud? What would be the greatest advantage to them? So having advisory practices, especially for the smaller towns that may be ignoring this or don't have the money to address this, would be helpful. In addition to that, there's compliance issues with IT. I mean, we just recently went through an audit, and it's stunning what they expect you to do to be compliant with your IT, in your IT world. So, are you compliant? Probably most towns don't know, and maybe even schools don't know, because they've never been through this audit. But having somebody be proactive and say, you know, in addition, this is what you need to be compliant. For example, are your IT policies up to date? Because this is a changing world, a rapidly changing world. And as you know, the town of Queensbury has outsourced our IT work just because it's become so complex, so involved, that it's better to have a team of 30 people working on your side than it is to have one or two. So these are the kinds of things that might fall under advisory that the county could help the towns with.
I would think that we could easily add that into the narrative for the advisory services. We have the specifics that we have in there now are we have services including but not limited to troubleshooting, problem solving, longer term strategic and budgetary planning. I certainly think that those things would fall under strategic planning. Building or enhancing the participants' network and advising on current and future equipment, hardware, and software needs. So we can for sure specify storage needs and compliance and policy review as well.
Okay,
We will do that, sure. Others? Okay. So I would like to, with that, we'll turn it over to Jessica, who has her own presentation, which I will be flipping through as she instructs. So take it away.
Great. I'm a very soft speaker, but I'm going to try to speak loud. My name is Jessica Waldorf. I'm from the New York Power Authority. I previously worked at NYSERDA for about 10 years and worked on the Clean Energy Communities program, which I think a lot of you are familiar with, and I know some participants in this room. Made the move to the Power Authority earlier this year, and really timing-wise, Power Authority is expanding into more business development services with municipalities. Power Authority has been around for a long time and doing energy efficiency work, but mainly with larger agencies, school districts, colleges and universities, and not as much on the municipal side. So that's why I was brought on to do a lot more work with municipalities and really take off some of the burden of competitive bidding requirements and access to cheap financing through NYPA's financing vehicle. So with that, go to the next slide. So I'm going to give a quick overview of the Power Authority, then the program, get into timeline and next steps, talk about the connection with the Shared Services Initiative, and just highlight the Clean Energy Communities program because LED street lighting upgrades is one of the action items in that program. The next one. So as I said, NYPA is the largest state public power organization in the country. We have 16 generation facilities across the state, and that's where a lot of the proceeds from that we use to provide financing to entities such as yourselves. NYPA does offer a variety of different services, all the way from design through construction management, commissioning, financing, even some measurement and verification work. And a new service that we have is solar advisory services. Power Authority, much like this program, went out with a large competitive bid for power purchase agreements through the Office of General Services. And so through that, we're able to offer discounted power purchase agreements to customers and also just advise on what the best fit is for each stakeholder. So we've seen some not so great power purchase agreements on the municipal side that has actually trapped them into not being able to do efficiency work, kind of like a disincentive for that, and we don't want to see that across the state. So definitely keeping an eye out for that. So municipalities can work with NYPA through public authority law, and basically NYPA can finance, design, develop, construct, implement, and take care of the competitive purchasing and bidding requirements for the municipality. So you can hire us directly, and then we kind of implement the project beginning to end. Throughout the process, both on materials and labor, we incorporate municipal feedback into that decision-making process. So we'll do the bidding, but the municipality still has the ultimate say in who gets hired. We're just taking the, some of the burden off of you. Go to the next one. So Smart Street Lighting New York was announced by the governor with a goal of 500,000 streetlights converted to LED by 2025. There's about 1.5 million streetlights across the state, 400,000 of which are in New York City, and they've already been converted through a previous effort. So that leaves 1.1 for us to take care of between now and 2025. We have close to 500,000 in our pipeline right now, just of communities that have reached out to us, expressed interest, some of which have received proposals from us and are moving forward into design. But essentially the program came about with an effort kind of lined up with some of the tariff filings with the utilities. Bigger municipalities across the state wanted to purchase back their assets and be able to convert their streetlights to LEDs. And they were getting frustrated with some of the pricing that was coming back and just wanted a transparent way of getting access to that information and also transparency around the price calculation. So earlier this year, in March, National Grid tariff filing went through, and that essentially opened the door for municipalities in National Grid territory to be able to request a purchase price and get net book value pricing. So very straightforward calculation. Some of the pricing that we've seen through that has been significantly less than what it was before, so it's a good thing. NYPA was very involved in that process, and actually today is arguing attending the Orange and Rockland rate case to allow for dimming and some more, billing that's a little bit closer to actual usage for municipalities. Right now you're kind of billed based on a billable wattage and not so much on what you actually consume. So what we're hoping for is through this new tariff we would get credit for that and also for dimming and some of the other smart control features that are being put in place across the state. We can skip this one, actually. I went over that. So reasons to act now. National Grid territory, that window is a 3-year window. So after 3 years, kind of don't know what's going to happen. We hope that the window will still be open for that net book value pricing, but we're not quite sure. So that's certainly one reason to act now. Another is the potential for energy and maintenance savings. Automatically from switching your existing streetlights to LED, you see a significant amount of savings. But really the savings, in addition to taking over ownership, you're seeing a huge savings in what we call reduced facility charges. So right now on your metal infrastructure, each of your fixtures and also the luminaires throughout the municipality, you pay a maintenance fee on each part of those assets. By taking over ownership, you see about a 60% increase in savings above what you're already going to save in energy. Using one municipality in this room as an example, City of Glens Falls is going to see over $200,000 a year in savings. Put that to scale, they have 1,277 lights. That includes some customer-owned fixtures, but it's a pretty significant amount of savings. The project, including the purchase from the utility, pays for itself in less than 9 years. And that's with doing some smart control features too. So you can kind of tailor it depending on what you want to do. You don't have to do smart control features in the municipality. That's something I'll talk about in a bit. And you also don't have to use NYPA for the entire process. We can do beginning to end. You can come to us just for materials pricing. You can come to us just for financing. There's a lot of different elements that you can access through our program. Go to the next one. We can skip this one too. I already highlighted that one. So first step in the process really is to request a purchase price from the utility. It doesn't necessarily lock you into anything, but just gets you that information so you can make an informed decision on whether or not project makes sense for you. After that, and also during that time, we would do a proposal for you just based off of your existing utility bills, give you a sense of cost and savings. Once we get the actual purchase price, we would update that, of course, and then also start design. So there's a very long window of time between the time you request the purchase price from National Grid, get it back, and then the time that you would move forward with an upgrade project. That time frame, the first 90 days, we can even start design so you don't have to delay a project waiting for that information. That's all stuff we can get into detail on each specific municipality. To get the net book value pricing in grid territory, you have to purchase all of the lights, so anything that's currently owned by the utility you'd have to take over. There is some metal infrastructure in some of the communities up here. You don't necessarily have to purchase that. Savings obviously increases. You're paying less maintenance because you're going to take that over yourself, but you don't have to. And those are all options that we'll go over with you during the design process. Let's skip that one. So there's a bunch of different options for municipalities that are interested in converting to LED. You can use your in-house resources to procure and install LED streetlights on the one you already own. You can issue an RFP for energy performance contract or local labor and materials. You can aggregate on a contract from another municipality, which is what we're here to talk about today. And then you can use us to do all of those things. So if you have some customer-owned lights that you already own, you can be upgrading them now on your own. But really, what we want to try to encourage you to do and also just show you the potential for savings is, come to us, get a bid, and then we'll go over the details with you and see if it makes sense for you to move forward with it. But through the Shared Services Initiative, there is a very large potential for savings. Taking that one municipality, $200,000 a year, those savings are both energy and maintenance, and both of those qualify for the Shared Services Cash Match Grant from Department of State. So it's a very large potential for savings, and also that's $200,000 a year that you're going to see for 20 to 25 years over the life of the equipment. So it's a very near-term savings, but also a lot of savings over the long term. The next one. So part of what we do is not just materials and labor bids and everything in between, but we also do a lot of community engagement and workshops during the design and construction part of the project. That's any project that we do, not just LED street lighting, but we have seen situations across the country where municipalities have moved forward. Most of this is older LED technology where you had that really bright white light and couldn't really customize it from there. And then people weren't happy afterwards, and we don't want that. So during the project, like I said, we do several workshops. We have staff that are local to the area that will come do the workshops, put up sample streetlights across the community so you can get real-time feedback from people that live within the community. And then also, we do some signage, some commissioning at the end of the project. We'll never leave a project without you seeing the results of what you've installed and some of the initial savings. We'll go through the commissioning process, make sure if you want to add any shielding to any of the lights, anything like that, change the color temperature of any of the lights. We'll do that during commissioning. That way at the end, you're signing off to the project that you wanted. So one of the biggest advantages of coming through our program is discounted materials. So earlier, at the end of last year, we went through a nationwide competitive material bid for options for color temperatures, beam spreads, wattages, and some smart city controls, and got back bids from 6 different entities that we ended up awarding. The lowest bid was Philips. They're the lowest bid for roadway lighting. They have a very attractive light that we're able to get about 50% of what they're selling on the market right now. So if it's a private entity looking to go to Philips to get this light, it's literally half of that if you purchase it from NYPA. The reason why is we've already pre-purchased about 250,000 lights, so we're able to get that discounted price. We knew it was an initiative by the governor, and we also knew that we had this aggressive goal, so that's one huge advantage that municipalities get through coming through us. Another, just on the materials side, is some of the utility programs have specific color temperatures and also specific manufacturers you have to use if you go through their process. Through us, you can use any vendor. We have a lot of options for decorative lighting as well. And then color temperatures, you can really vary that depending on the area of the community. So you have a bunch of commercial roadway lights. They don't all have to be 4,000 Kelvin and that brighter white light. You can still have some yellower light if you have that in some of the mixed-use commercial residential corridors. And that way you're kind of tailoring it to what you know the community is going to feel the most comfortable with. Even with that yellower light, it's still a much wider spread of light. So throughout the design process, we'll also discuss with you, some lights that you might have out that either you want to replace and, make active, or maybe you just don't need that light anymore because it's too much light in the community. So there's a potential for additional savings there. Or maybe you have a corridor in the community you wish you had been able to provide more light to. We can add some light fixtures throughout that area as well. Very flexible. So smart city technology options. Right now, Philips has what we call asset management controls. That's on the left side of this slide. That offers things like GIS mapping, utility grade metering, full controllability of the light, performance notifications. So if one of them goes out, you're instantly notified through an app on your phone or your computer, and the ability to dim. So you had a big event in the community and you had a fireworks show and you wanted to bring down the lighting a little bit in that area, you could do that and then bring it right back up as people are driving home from the event. That is something that a lot of communities downstate have already implemented, and just across the country, a lot of communities are taking more advantage of that. On the right side is what we call advanced smart city controls, where you can make things like Wi-Fi hubs, cameras, weather sensors, noise and acoustics monitoring, traffic monitoring. That's kind of the next level. That's what City of Schenectady is moving forward in that area. They have a big concern about security, so they're using the cameras on each of the lights to monitor security throughout the community. And Philips has that capability, but we also, I know we've talked to the City of Glens Falls about potentially using another vendor. We are willing to do some pilots, so if there's a vendor that has come to you that you're interested in working with, that's something we can talk about doing as well. So funding sources. Another thing that NYPA does throughout the process is we also apply for, on your behalf, any utility rebates, any other incentives that are available right now. Clean Energy Communities Program, a lot of you I think have already participated in it or somewhere along that process. That funding can be used to buy down the financing on this project. It can be used for anything else you want to use it for. Same with the utility rebate. That's something that you will get as a pass-through to NYPA or even directly from the utility. And that's money you can apply to the project or keep and use it towards something else. So those are all decisions that you can make for what works best for you. And then financing. We know of some other entities that are financing streetlight conversions right now. And we've seen interest rates there anywhere from 4 to 8%. Right now, NYPA is offering interest rates anywhere from 1.5 to 4 being the highest. So we're able to cut the interest rate in about half from what's available right now in the market. Go to the next one. So in addition to the materials bid, what we do on the back end of a project, we've already went out and handled the competitive requirement for the materials. So it's not something we have to do project by project. But on the labor side, that is something that we're doing unique to every community, or in this case an aggregation project. We would do a competitive bid, and the more communities, the more streetlights, and the cheaper the pricing that we get. And that's another thing that will help you demonstrate in terms of savings. So if some of these municipalities went off on their own and say they got a labor rate of $120 an hour, but because we've aggregated it, it's $80 an hour, that's an additional savings that we can throw onto the project as well. Um, we also, we pay attention to local labor. We want to see a lot of local contractors get work, so we make sure that we reach out to entities, get them on the list of entities that will issue an RFP to. If there's any that you know of that you'd want to be able to have a chance in the project, direct them to me, and I'll tell them how to get added to the list of bidders. But that's something that we do unique to every aggregation project. We bid for installation of the streetlights, and depending on the communities, if they want to do a maintenance contract long-term after the project, that's something that we would do the bid for as well, and we do it at the same time.
And Jessica, the key for this in terms of timeline is to try to get everybody that wants to move forward with this moving forward at the same time on the labor bid, correct?
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be the exact same day that everybody agrees to move forward with the project, but we try, I think the next step says October 1st, but really like early to mid-October is when we'd be looking to get the final purchase price from the utility, so you're about 90 days out from that right now. And then that would kind of be the threshold where we would want to start moving into bidding and design and construction right around that time frame. If there are some that are ready to move forward a little bit earlier, that's okay. We would just include them as like a add alternate into the larger bid. And even issue the larger bid first to get them going, and then the other communities as an add alternate. So that's what we've done in other areas of the state too. There are probably, I would say, of the counties that I know, there's probably 10 to 12 that are looking to do big aggregation projects like this. And that's not including a lot of the ones downstate that have already started to move forward through the Mid-Hudson Streetlight Consortium. They started this effort a little bit before the governor's initiative, but actually ended up hiring NYPA to implement the consortium project. So we're working very closely with them on moving that forward. And so what we look for is a positive cash flow for every project in year one. And since we've started doing the proposal development for communities, I haven't really seen anybody that hasn't had a positive cash flow. Even a community with only 50 lights, I've been able to show at least a few $100s of positive cash flow savings. Obviously, the more streetlights, the more potential for savings. But what I like about this program, and even being in the room today, is we can aggregate communities, so some of those ones that only have a few lights or 25 lights can still participate in the project. I'm presenting to Hamilton County, which Susan knows is a lot of smaller communities, and one of them sent me their streetlight bill today, and it was literally one light. But because they're close by to another community, I think we'll add it into the project. I don't think we do a whole project for one light, but we can at least add them in, so that's a good thing. Get to the next slide. So the equipment that you're installing as part of an LED retrofit, the LEDs themselves, like I said, they've come a long way. There's a lot more options for color temperatures, design options, and also the lifetime of an LED lasts over 20 years. So really, maintenance-wise, there should be very little to no maintenance for a community unless it's a weather-related incident or, someone drives into a streetlight. Most of the poles in a lot of these communities are wooden, so the utility will continue to own them. They have other assets tied to them. You'll just lease them from the utility. And the lease in National Grid territory is 60 cents per pole per month per year. It's really not a lot of money, and it's something you don't even really notice as part of this project because it's such a small amount. And it also just means the utility is going to continue to maintain those poles for you. So all you're maintaining is the fixture that's tied to them. On the metal poles, like I said, that's something you can purchase, but you don't have to. And that's all options that will be given to you during the negotiation process with the utility. NYPA offers a 1-year labor warranty, so post-project, if anything goes wrong with any of the fixtures, you decide you want to add some shielding to some of the lights to direct the light away from a house, something like that, that's all stuff that NYPA will take care of within the first year. After that, that's why we do a 2-year maintenance agreement after that. So we go out to bid for communities that don't have the equipment to take it on themselves, a big truck, anything like that. And we try to do like 2 to 5 year bid intervals for maintenance because the longer you go out, the higher the bids we've received. So in the short term, it just ends up being a little bit cheaper, but we can do it either way. We did just close a bid on Long Island, which we thought would be on the higher end of a maintenance bid. and we saw bid prices come in, and this was the middle to high range of $10 a fixture per year. That's not a lot of money, and really that's what we show in our proposals to communities. That's about the average that we've seen. That's a very good deal for communities in terms of what you were paying versus what you will be paying. In one example, community was paying $147,000 a year, and now they're going to be paying they're going to be saving $128. So that difference is like $17,000, $18,000 a year. So instead of $147, it's $18,000. That's a very big difference, and that's why the opportunity to move forward with projects like this is crucial right now. Go to the next one. So like I said, a lot of choices. We have equipment for Cobra heads, architectural lighting, high mass lighting, and also decorative urban. One of our vendors is Gexpro right out of Schenectady. They are able to, City of Saratoga had a specific light that they wanted to use that they've been using, and we were able to get them, decorative lighting is very expensive, but we were able to shave like $300 off per light, and that's $300 across 1,000 fixtures was a very good reduction for them, which is great. The optical performance is kind of hard to see on the screen right here because it's pretty bright, but the first one you can see there's a huge dark area in the middle. The next one is more of an even spread of light, and then the bottom one, which is some of the LED lights that were installed probably 4 or 5 years ago, were very directed downward and didn't have a very wide angle. The newer LEDs are much more spread out, so you can see a big difference with a good performing LED now. And then we are dark sky compliant, so we make sure that all the street lighting projects that we do comply with dark sky requirements. And also, like I said, there are some options for shielding, and we can direct the light away from a residence, or even if it's on a street, direct it all towards like the sidewalk in the street, so that there's no glare going inside someone's house. And then what you see in the picture here is the Philips City Touch node. That's really, what that does is a lot of the asset management, so GIS mapping, instant notifications for an outage, all of that stuff, dimming, and you can do some more advanced controls above and beyond this. With Philips, actually, they have this technology. They're working on what they call a next level smart city technology. That's why companies like, I know Fiber has reached out to Glens Falls, and there's another one, Calenza, that's another active one in this state that's looking to do pilot projects for some of the more advanced smart city controls. But this is a very good option. What you could have purchased a fixture before our materials bid, you can now get a fixture and this node for less than that price. So if someone wants to reduce their maintenance costs and also just be able to have a little bit of more controllability and notifications for outages, this is a very smart option and something we can show you pricing for as part of the proposal. And then, like I said, with that control, it really just allows you to be able to get instant notifications and be able to manage the light in the community a little bit quicker than what you currently aren't doing right now. So some aggregation advantages. So obviously, larger scale project, lower cost, higher savings, but also allows for communities with 1,200 lights and communities with 50 or 100 lights to participate all through the same project. Which is great. NYPA is a not-for-profit entity, and our goal really is to get the most streetlights converted to LED that we can across the state. But we also want to serve as your advisor throughout the project. During the bidding process, we'll review those bids with you, make sure, you just kind of get another third-party review on some of the pricing, some of the installation requirements that they're putting into the bid, that kind of stuff. And then also provide low-interest financing structured through the savings that you'll see in a project. So that annual cash flow positive savings is what's going to pay for your financing. And significant energy and facility savings that you'll see in a project. So really, project identification is the first step in the scope of work, requesting a purchase price from the utility, receiving a proposal from us. During that process, most communities pass a resolution to determine whether or not they want to move forward with the project and the costs associated with it. sign a master cost recovery agreement with NIPA, which essentially is terms and conditions to work with us. If you sign that agreement, it doesn't lock you into anything. It's just if you decide to ever do a project with us, you already have one in place. So that's one of the things that we look for as part of this process. And then design implementation, construction of the project, and throughout the process, community education. So next one. And so the utility has 90 days to respond to your purchase price. During that, we can start in parallel with survey and design. So we do a GIS map of the community where we go and kind of tag each of your lights, and then you'll always have that. Whether you do, move forward into construction or you don't, you'll always have that inventory, full inventory of your lights. We'll tell you what lights have been out that maybe you've been paying for and didn't know. We'll tell you some lights that are on that aren't on your bill, and those ones we just won't talk about. But we'll make you aware of that information as well. And then you kind of settle on a purchase price. There's a period of time after you get the price. You have 180 days to accept it and submit it to the PSC for approval. Once you accept it, the utility and PSC have 60 days to submit, review, and approve purchase price, and then purchase and installation of the fixtures. In some utility territories, we've seen a quicker response. I know the 90-day window just passed for National Grid, so those of you that already submitted purchase price requests should have heard or should be hearing soon from them. And then really, we see installation take anywhere from 3 to 12 months, depending on system size. 12 months would be a community like City of Albany with 11,000 lights. That might be something that we phase, depending on, timeline for them. But most communities, all, beginning to end, anywhere from 9 to 12 months for a project. So I do have some information collection sheets. Those of you that didn't get one before the presentation or came in a little late, I have extras up here. That just gives me general contact info for the municipality and an estimate of the number of lights if you know that. There's a next steps document that goes over what I talked about today and just breaks it down in a little bit more detail on step-by-step what the project process would look like. And then really priorities are, if you haven't already, request your purchase price, just get that window started. Even if it's a project you don't end up moving forward with, at least it's something you can have the information for now. And then send a street lighting bill or two, and any inventory for customer-owned lights to me. And then I'll generate a proposal, turn it around to you, and I'll even come to a municipal meeting to go over the specific economics for your community and answer any questions that community stakeholders have right now as well. Shared Services Initiative, so Susan is in the room here, and the reason why I'm here today, but LED street lighting conversions can have a very significant potential for savings, both energy, maintenance, reduced savings from doing an aggregated bid versus individuals. There's a lot of different savings points that you can see, and even I came up with a frequently asked questions document that I shared with Susan that I can send to you guys as well. Just questions that we've seen about the relationship between this program and the Shared Services Initiative, how to calculate savings, that kind of stuff, so I'll certainly share that with you. And then you do get a one-time matching fund for the net savings on a project. And then as I said, in the Clean Energy Communities program, LED streetlights is one of the action items, one of the 10. I know a lot of communities in this room are already somewhere in the process of this program. And I think there are a few cash grants still available in this territory. I know some of the larger ones are ticking up, but some of the smaller ones aren't quite yet. Those of you that are in the process of submitting for a grant, I can certainly help with that process. The Clean Energy Community Coordinators in this region, Greg Mumby, Robin Reynolds was one, now she's working for City of Cohoes, Jill Fauci, a bunch of those individuals are very familiar with the NIPA program and can help you through that process as well. And then any questions, there's my contact information. It's in the PowerPoint handout that I handed out. Anybody that doesn't have one, you can grab one from me and also a business card, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Any questions now? Jeff?
If there's grant money available, will NIPA, apply for that and administer that and assure the municipal entity or entities?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And warranty, I mean,
Yeah.
the one thing I've noticed about LEDs is that, yeah, they're tremendously reliable.
Yeah.
However, for whatever reason, one or two of them, it's a small number,
Sure.
do fail in a short amount of time.
Yep.
So is there a warranty on these for like 2 years or 3 years?
10 years.
10
So you have a 10-year material warranty on the LED lights themselves. So our initial labor warranty is a 1-year warranty, but on the materials, 10 years. If anything happens to the fixture outside of someone driving into it, we'll replace it for you. So normal outages, that kind of stuff, will come and replace them. The only thing we won't is for an accident or a weather-related incident.
Right.
Yeah.
Some years back, we entered into an arrangement for Mercury that so you get rid of all lucky
Mhm.
but it didn't pay for it. What is the return on that investment, improvement on that? Is the program dovetail on the previous work that National Grid has under?
Yeah, so National Grid offered that program a few years back, right? So now, if you're moving forward with a conversion project, you would be taking over the ownership. So they're going to give you a purchase price based on the remaining depreciation of those fixtures. Now, one thing to know is in some other utility territories, we've seen average prices like $200 to $300. Other utilities depreciate assets over a 15-year time frame, but National Grid uses a 50-year time frame. So just be aware that your purchase price is going to be more than that. We've seen anywhere from $600 to $800 on some of the net book value pricing per fixture. And it seems like a very high amount, and it is. It's a good amount. I would say that's usually 50% of a project cost. The rest, our effort and the actual cost of LEDs are a very small part of that project. But it's a one-time thing that you pay for, you own, and then the savings more than pay for that over an initial 5 to 10-year term. So it's definitely worth it.
With the pedestrian lights, we don't
Yep.
we have all quite a few that stop and pedestrians.
Okay, good. Yeah,
So we're very
awesome. Great. Anybody else?
Thank you, Jessica, for one of my concerns was LEDs are very harsh on the eye, so it's good to know that there can be some control features to make them more human.
Absolutely.
So that's a selling point that I didn't know before, so maybe we'll look into this. Right now we get our bills, and it seems to be split out, so every month it's about $1,800, and it seems to be half of it's for electricity and half of it's for
Facilities. Yeah.
for the rest. How would that change if we went to LED?
If you went to LED and converted where you took over ownership, you would no longer see that other half of the bill.
So $900
You would only see
a
energy.
month you would not have.
Right, essentially. Or even less than that.
Mm-hmm.
So we're seeing, the post-utility bill would be about 70% less than what it is now.
Okay.
60 to 70%. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. In terms of color temperature, too, you don't even have to put the smart control to have a lower color temperature. So you can, we recommend like 2,000 to 3,000 Kelvin in a residential area, and then 4 to 5 in a commercial. And 3,000 is the standard utility residential area, 4,000 is standard commercial, but they don't allow for variation in those corridors. So that's one thing that I like about this program is having the ability to do what, Saratoga, as an example, uses about 2,700 Kelvin. It's a very specific light, but it took years for them to get community members to agree to it. We certainly don't want to mess up that process, so
and
that's an option.
Would that be on all streets or downtown?
It depends on what you want to do.
No,
Yeah.
I mean in Saratoga.
In Saratoga? So that really yellowy light is in some areas off of Broadway, but mostly residential. But if you ever drive through Saratoga, you can see like they have very specific lights that they've started installing. Those lights are very expensive, but we've been able to match that with the same vendor, and we're going to show them some other options too, just to let them know that they don't have to go through the same vendor to get the same exact look of a light. But yeah. So that's one advantage is we'll do a lot of that hunting and kind of price negotiation for you. Good. Question?
This almost appears too good to be true. This is the first time I've heard this presentation. Why would anyone just kind of like not do this? This Is there a,
Sure.
I don't see a downside.
That's probably why we have a lot of communities in the pipeline wanting to do it. But I think, I know a couple of communities that only have like 20 or 25 lights.
Okay.
They are not, I guess they don't have a huge incentive to move forward because it's not as much savings, or they just don't see it like that. But also the utility does have an option where you can do a phased approach, that it can take, anywhere from 5 to 10 years to fully convert your streetlights, and then you're still paying those maintenance savings or those maintenance charges. But I mean, the way that I would present it to each community too is we're going to show you a proposal. Some of you have probably already seen proposals from private entities. And then, the utility will show you one too, and you kind of got to review them and weigh them against each other and see which one is the best option. As like a independent third party, and also coming from the NYSERDA side too, working with municipalities, I want to make sure that people are making the best decision for them. So I certainly, on a community that only has 25 lights, I'm not going to pitch this program if I don't think it's going to make sense for them, So community with one light, I certainly wouldn't go to them with this program on its own. But like I said, that's kind of what I like about this aggregation process, is some of those smaller communities now are starting to think about it because they see, if I can tack on to someone that has 2,000 streetlights, well then the price is going to be a lot more attractive for me to do the work.
I would say, Peter, there's debt involved, right?
But this doesn't impact your debt ceiling.
But still,
yeah.
It's an obligation.
But that's something,
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, you get the financing, but you're incurring debt. Yeah.
We have a couple different financing structures. Our commercial paper financing operates very similar to what we call a tax-exempt municipal lease, where you can do financing and pay for it through the savings that you're getting from the project, and then you're not really impacting any debt ceiling on a community. That's one of the things that we're able to do as a public entity offering financing.
So if it costs you less per month or an equal
Right.
amount,
It wouldn't impact you.
So are you still incurring debt, or is that, I'm trying to figure out your definition of debt, maybe.
Yeah.
Did you have to borrow, or did you pay cash?
Okay.
Did you write one check for it? Or
So even though your monthly outlay is less or the same, the fact that you're entering into a financing arrangement would deter a municipality from maybe doing that.
It's part of the decision process, yeah.
Okay.
Sure. And we'll definitely have someone, knowing that that's a concern, we'll have someone come from the finance team and answer questions as well. Yeah. Anybody else?
I just want to make
Sure,
a
yeah.
statement. The City of Glens Falls, which was referenced a couple of times, we put together a special projects committee a couple of years ago. And obviously we were trying to find ways to save money, and LED street lighting had come up. And we were fortunate enough to, with our committee and the leadership of Jeff Flagg, we had put together a proposal, and we actually got a small grant on a microgrid. So that put us in the direction of, how can we save money on energy? And we became a clean energy community. Last October, we got an award at the ANCA conference.
I was there for that. Yeah.
Oh, you were? That's you look familiar.
On the other side. Yeah.
So anyway, we've been headed in that direction, and again, Jeff Flagg has done a lot of good things for us in that direction, and we have already put in to purchase our streetlights, and we're waiting for National Grid to come back with a figure. But I wanted to say that I've talked to other people from other communities, and they are all saying, you got to go to NYPA, it's a no-brainer. NYPA's a no-brainer. So you come highly recommended from other communities that I've talked to across the state. So I urge everyone to at least, entertain that. And I think Jeffrey has talked about the more that we can get together on that, the savings will be higher. So.
Yeah, definitely. So the only community that's brought that up so far is Saratoga. And I've provided them, and I can send it and pull something together for each community here too, but kind of the reasons why it shouldn't. And they've used that in the justification for why it wouldn't impact or raise it. we're even doing some of their lights too, because they own a bunch of streetlights across the state. Yep.
And you also entertain some of the, like, there is around Culver Park,
Mhm.
Culver, St. Louis Marathon starts with a little more decorative lighting first in there.
Absolutely.
We're Dark Skies Defiant community, even though the Culver Shield and the Dark Skies Defiant are the Mountain of July, you're looking up at the lumen.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the lower you get this lighting, the more, the better it is for the goal of Dark Skies Defiant.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So you work with communities about
Swapping out. Yeah.
swapping out for other types of things with lower,
Mhm.
higher design.
Yep. Yep. Definitely.
Right.
Great. Anybody else? Any curveballs? You're gonna throw me one.
No, I'm just going to make a quick comment just to dovetail and follow up what Mayor Hall said. I'm Jeff Black, by the way, for those who don't know. We have been working on this, but, you know, the special projects committee sort of morphed into a sustainability committee that we now have after Mayor Hall was elected in November. And so we've been working on a number of different things. We've been sort of talking about streetlights for maybe the better part of most of the year. Anyway, I mean, but I'd be happy to talk to anybody about what we've been doing at sort of the local level and how we could sort of coordinate these things on any level. So if anybody wants to talk to me, I'm happy to touch base with them.
Great.
Mr. McDevitt, your comment about why this sounds too good to be true, I think it's probably, and not to step on your toes or anything,
Yeah.
Jessica, but I think maybe it's partly because this hasn't been, LED streetlights have not been around for too terribly long. Right? So, I mean, this is a relatively new initiative, and as I'm sure you're all aware, it's a pretty significant fight for something to do, right? It encompasses the entire city, it's every street, it's every person, it's every community member, and so I think it might be a little bit daunting until there's been a mechanism like this to try and pursue it. It seems like it's been a little bit tough for people to take. It is low-hanging fruit, but I think it's more like a watermelon than an apple, so it's a big piece of fruit.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. One of the other things, I think, too, in just some of the smaller municipalities across the state, if you think about it, NYPA does a lot of energy efficiency building projects, too, but doing a building efficiency project is not something that people see every day. So if you're trying to get community members to get excited about a project, replacing a boiler in a town hall is probably not going to get them super excited because they're never going to notice that you've replaced it. Changing the entire look of a community with brighter, safer lights is something that you can easily market, sell, and educate people about, and they'll see those benefits every day. So I think that's another reason why communities are so excited about this program, because it's a very attractive, outward-facing thing that they're doing for the community.
Any other questions for Jessica? Privilege of the floor? Anybody? Okay, well, before we adjourn, I'll just once again, yes,
I
yes,
want to
Mayor.
bring one thing up. When we were talking earlier about, things possibly to do with DPW and so on, was one of our problems that we have in the city is trees, taking care of trees and tree removal. We went out to bid, and we sent out 11 bids for tree removal. We got one response back. We were talking about prevailing wage. And that's a problem for us in the city. We spent over $100,000 last year on taking care of trees. So I wanted to throw that out. If there's anything that anybody else in the room can think of, that's one of our concerns. So that's a
Any other comments on that? Supervisor Straub?
Well, I agree with Mayor Hall, but I also had another topic. Is this appropriate time?
Of course.
The shared services agreement that I drafted and then Amy put the nice touches on it, where is that?
We've had the county attorney review it, so she is certainly aware of it. We are not at this time under an obligation to, that doesn't have to be part of the plan. The due date that we have for September 15th is just for a plan to be put together. The execution of that plan will be thereafter. And in fact, the state matching funds, if we were to implement any of this before January 1st, 2019, we don't get state matching funds. So the implementation is very much after the adoption of the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Yes.
Yeah, I see our Director of Real Property here and the assessor for Hork and Bolton, and there was talk of countywide assessing as well. Where is that?
We did discuss countywide assessing. I discussed it with the Treasurer's Office as well as the Real Property Office, and the overwhelming consensus from all the professionals that we've talked to is that this would be more of a long-term initiative, perhaps for the Shared Services Committee to look at, but it's not going to produce savings over the next 3 years. In fact, it would be more likely to produce increased costs, and the reasons would be the hiring new employees at the county level, getting vehicles, getting computers, getting all of what they would require to do their work, and also all of getting up to speed with the processes that are used in the various towns. Not everybody does this the same way. There are certain residents that expect to have one-on-one contact with the assessor every year. Records access would be an issue that we would have to take up right away. So there are some significant hurdles in the initial years of doing something like this. In the long run, it could pay off, but in fact, the county treasurer did a study a number of years ago, a detailed study on this, and I think, don't quote me on this, we'll get it directly from him, but I think he told me that he didn't see it break even for 15 years in terms of the county's ability to provide that service countywide at a cheaper rate than the towns were currently doing it at the time that he looked at it. Part of that would be county reval, whether we want to do a countywide reval. That would come at a cost. So there's a lot to consider with that, and for this particular initiative, it didn't seem appropriate. Yes. That's good to know. Thank you. Anybody else? Before we adjourn, I would just emphasize if you could get to me, get to Jessica sooner rather than later so we can get details in order, score savings. If we don't have savings, we don't have a shared services plan. So we've got a lot of work to do between now and September 15th. Thank you so far for all your cooperation and participation. It's very much appreciated, and we will get some good results out of this project. With that, is there a motion to adjourn? Supervisor Strauss, second. Supervisor Simpson, all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you.